طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Inshallah we'll continue our class Fiqh Al-Khilaf wa Adab Al-Khilaf, and we've been studying the whole part of the historical context of the Ikhtilaf and its development from the time of the Prophet ﷺ to the time of the companion, and then in the time of the Tabi'een, and some of the rules, or we can say principle that leading to have the good Ikhtilaf, and what are the action or element that really lead to bad Ikhtilaf, which lead to the division and to the conflict. We have went up to the, also we studied, we just touched the effect of political disagreement on creedal and juristic differences. If you have any question about that, we can go, I might go to the difference here, Ibn Abbas and Al-Khawarij, talk about that famous and known argument that happened and reported. We're going to read that. But if you have any question about the effect of the political disagreement, mainly we were talking about the groups like Al-Khawarij, of course, that the Prophet ﷺ warned the companion from them. The groups like Al-Batini, the Batini group, including the Shia and people like the Qaramita and so on, and things that happen, subhanallah, in the history of Islam. It's hurtful, but in the same time you can see what the division or the differences based on ignorance, what it can lead for. For example, Qaramita, one of the things that they had done is to attack the Hujjaj in Bayt Allah al-Haram. And they killed a lot of Hujjaj, and they stopped the Hajj. And they took the Hajar al-Aswad from its place, which stayed in their place for years. People, they go and make Hajj without the Hajar al-Aswad. And those people who were, believing that Hajj, it's not from Islam, because it's like this is part of the what people they inherit from the Jahiliyyah, so it's like kind of idol worshipping stones. I will read the Ibn Abbas, and to see the style of one of the greatest scholars of the companion Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, Abdullah ibn Abbas, went to meet the Khawarij. Now, the Khawarij are those who kharaju, which is mean kharaja, someone left. So they left and they got, divided themselves from the group of Ali radiallahu ta'ala. So we're with Ali, pretending to be with him, against Talha wa Zubayr wa Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anhum. And everyone, as we have mentioned last time, everyone has his ayah in his mind, which he really, upon which he and she radiallahu ta'ala anha and radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'een based their ijtihad. And we mentioned that the ijtihad of the Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu was the most accurate, the more accurate. Also, we said, subhanallah, the presence of people who do not want things to turn good, they also, they were the obstacle. They were the putting all their effort for the conflict and the division to happen. So, and that's another element that in studying the khilaf that happened between the companion Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim in the time of after the assassination of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anh, to understand it. So it was not, mainly that the outcome of it and all what happened, responsibility of the companion, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. It was people who stirring that, who trying to, put more fitna. And according to, narration, strong narration, that the true fight that happened in the night, it was not from the companion or after, because they already, as I have said, they came to an agreement. Al-Qaqa ibn Amr came to agreement, and they said, all of us, we're looking forward to establish the justice and to keep the unity. Now, to give an evidence for that, the evidence is when Ali radiallahu ta'ala an accepted the tahkim, which is the arbitration that between Ali and the group of Sham led by Muawiyah. So he accepted the tahkim. Why? Because when came to a point, they said, oh, why are we doing that? I mean, we have the book of Allah between us. So they left the book of Allah. Said, let's come to the book of Allah. Said, that's what we want from on the first place. So the tahkim, it was first to stop everything. And as we have said, Ali never was fought for his khilafah, and Muawiyah never asked for it. And they stop everything with some, let's say, agreement to stop the fight, to keep sometimes when a schedule went to bring these people to justice, and so on. So they wanted first to have the time to heal the wounds, And in the meanwhile, Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu was assassinated. In this time of truce, if you can say, of healing, of the conflict between the companions, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. Now the evidence is, if the people were with Ali, they were really looking for unity, the khilaf, to bring the community together, they would have stayed with him. But as he's the leader, and he's the most knowledgeable among them, and he is, the closest to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the companion around him, when he accepted the tahkim, they withdrew themselves from Ali. They became the enemy of Ali. They start to call Ali is a kafir. So these are the Khawarij. One of the main, aspect that really characterized the Khawarij is that, that they judge, or let's say, let's put it in different words, the major sin according to them, result on it the disbelief. So a person is a kafir when they commit a major sin. So for them, Ali, by accepting the tahkim, he committed a major sin, therefore he's a kafir. Now, just to understand something in the fundamental of the Aqidah, there is something, important to always put in mind. Every name in the Aqidah associated to this name its own principle and rules. Let's say its own rules. For example, we say a believer, it has attributes, it have rules, laws around the believer. A Muslim, hypocrite, fasiq, kafir, disbeliever. So this are asma. And these names related to it, ahkam, related to it, laws. For example, the hypocrite, a person that he does not believe in his heart, and he's like showing, he tried to appear, as being a believer. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, be careful of these people. They are the true enemy. However, did they say we are non-believer? They didn't say. So you have to treat them according to the law of Islam. As long as they say it with the tongue, we are Muslims. That's how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with the hypocrite in Medina. That Allah was giving us to the Prophet ﷺ the way how they come to the prayer, so lazy, they don't want to give sadaqah only if they are forced, and so on. The Bedouin, they came to the Prophet, they said, we are a believer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet, said, no, you're not yet believer, you are Muslims. However, Muslim and believers, they're going to be, dealt with alike. But when it comes to the actions, the engine of the action is the heart. So the believer, they're going to be, you can see them, they are more dedicated, more, into the sadaqah, into the striving and so. But the other, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do good deeds are accepted from you. If you obey, you're not still mu'min, you're not still true believer, because the belief didn't get into your heart. Therefore, whatever you do as good in obeying Allah and His Messenger, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not neglect your deeds. This is the rahmah of Allah. Now, someone who does not believe, a disbeliever, can you deal with the disbeliever with the same laws of a Muslim? You cannot. Cannot. First, it comes, for example, in marriage. If the person, difference of faith, they cannot marry, right? So this ahkam, because the person say, are you Muslim? He said, no. Then if you are not Muslim, for example, you cannot marry. There's disbelief is an impediment into, distribution of inheritance. Disbelief is also, does not qualify a person to be a witness in some of the contract, Islamic contract. So you see, it does not mean that the disbeliever is going to be despised and fought into Muslim society, but there is ahkam who cannot be part of it. Why? Because he chose on his own to be disbelief. He has different ahkam. A disbeliever, he's not going to be asked to pay zakat. He's going to pay jizya. So the problem, when we mix between these names, we are, changing the deen. So if you say, for example, a Muslim who committed a major sin become a disbeliever, he said you're going to make him, this person, that if he's married, so his, wife or the wife is haram on her husband, or the husband is haram on the wife. That's what you're making. You're making someone, take his right of inheritance. You're making someone, all of these things that's going to apply because you named this person, this believer. Now, the most dangerous part is when there is, for example, war. And who's taking part of the war? People who are like, with different faith. So it's saying, for example, Muslim and non-Muslim. They come to a war. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, for example, in Surah Al-Anfal, whatever the Muslim in that battle have as on the ground left, it spoils. It's halal for them to take. Why? Because these people are disbelievers. And they engage into the war with them like people of Quraysh. So it is the right, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them this right. At that time, we're talking at that time, the prisoners, they're gonna be taken as slaves. That was the practice at that time. Practice, to unless there is, treaty where they exchange a prisoner and things. But it's been known for long, into the many of the civilization. Before, it's like the prisoner are being taken into like slaves. Now, if for example, the fight of the battle happened between Muslims, it's haram to take anything because from the ground, because whatever the Muslim, if he died, he's still your brother. So to take his belonging is stealing, not ghanim. And to take that person to make him a slave, or if there is, women take them a slave, that's also is like, it's haram, because that's not his status of a battle that if they overcame you, they're going to take you as a slave. That's why you take them slave. No, this is, you are the same clan, you are the same people. So you see, and then they go farther. They go farther, so whoever they call disbeliever, which is an enemy, which is enemy, so it is required to fight this enemy. And what it means, fight this enemy, is to kill this enemy. So this is kind of, I will say, wrong interpretation in understanding the Book of Allah, that first was implemented by the Khawarij. طيب. Classifying Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he's a kafir. Good to see it. So what it means? So it is halal, not halal. If he's a kafir, then he's leading a group that spreading mischief. Killing Ali is one of the greatest action, because it's an action of shahada if the one who kill him and die. And is an action to have the Muslim get rid from a kafir who make himself to be the leader of the Muslim. This is the Khawarij. Wow. So the people who follow their steps, even in the present time, this is how they think. So they don't think about unity, they don't think about community, they don't think about the prosperity of Islam and Muslim. They don't think about putting in action the principle of Islam that can help Muslim and help everybody else around them. No. They think at implementing this very hurtful ahkam, so to get an empowerment to think that they can establish the law, what they call the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So having the governance of their way, it is the way how they believe to take over this world, and this is what is the mission of the religion. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anh, he said, I'm going to talk to them. Even though, it's these people, as I have said, are very harsh and are like criminals, I told you, you can study, you see the one who was going to kill Ali radiallahu ta'ala anh. What he's been saying is like, say, wow. I mean, to this point, ignorance and subhanallah, deviation into the corruption into the heart comes to this point. That's when you say, Ya Allah, keep my heart straight on your path. It's an amazing one. If you'll find one of the texts, read it for you, you'll be shocked. Anyway, so these Khawarij, they planned actually to kill not only Ali, to kill Ali and Muawiyah and someone else. But the two other failed, and the one who was appointed to kill Ali, he get him in when he was going to the Salah. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala an, he said, I'm gonna go to them to talk to them. Maybe they come back if I'll argue with them. So this is, we have one of the most eloquent way of arguing, to study it from Ibn Abbas. So it's like a debate, it's a munadara, and you have the text in the book I have uploaded. This hadith is narrated by Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. He's saying, narrating from his chain of narration, that سماك الحنفي قال سمعت ابن عباس يقول قال علي لا تقاتلوهم حتى يخرجوا فإنهم سيخرجون. So Ali radiallahu ta'ala said, do not fight them till they show evidence or they truly going to divide themselves. So when we are sure with the proof they are against the Muslim with all these wicked ideas, and they will lead, like they remove from the unity, divide and withdraw themselves, and they say, so they declare their enmity, they clear to be clear. So, and this is something very important as to learn from the great companion Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, which actually in the Quran, to always verify the news. You cannot act without verifying the news. Even to help two brothers, to help two sisters, to help, people to listen to them, maybe they ask you for your opinion, always verify. What does mean verifying? It's not going to be like, trying to spy. No. Someone is going to tell you things. He said, this person did for me and did for me and did for me. So, subhanallah, the version that the person gives you, it's really, it affects you, because we are, people full of emotion. Then you already have your judgment on the other person. Said he should not have done this, this is wrong. And then even the person who's listening get mad and sometimes, have a judgment. But when he listens to the second person, he will feel like ashamed that he said words about this person. So this is just to give you the idea how, we are somehow, every one of us went through this experience. So you cannot act without verifying, listen to the other person. So someone will bring you the news. You cannot react on the news without verifying it. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Hujurat. إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ فَتَبَيَّنُوا. Why? If you do not verify, you're going to hurt people without knowing. And that is a major sin. So Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, be sure that they are, kharijin, they are like, they dissociate themselves from the unity. That's when we'll be able or permissible to fight them. And Ali said they're going to do it. قال قلت يا أمير المؤمنين أبرد بالصلاة فإني أريد أن أدخل عليهم فأسمع من كلامهم وأكلمهم. He said, O Prince of the Believer, I want to have the time, after the salat, abrid, معناها, get a little bit, which is mean it's very warm and hot. When it get like the sun down, I would like to go and talk to them and listen from them. فقال أخشى عليك منهم. Ali radiallahu ta'ala said, I really fear for you from these people. Because these people, they do not have aman, they do not have trust. They follow what they think it's right. They don't listen. قال ابن عباس وكنت رجل حسن الخلق لا أؤذي أحدا. Ibn Abbas, he said, I am a person who's like, حسن الخلق, which is mean people, they know me, I do not hurt anybody. So people they like Ibn Abbas. He never get in conflict with anybody. قال فلبست أحسن ما يكون من الثياب اليمنية. So he put, the best of the clothes that he has, what we call Yemeni, which is mean like imported from Yemen. So they have the fine clothes come from there. وترجلت, then he like he really took care of his appearance, and he went. When he get to them, because they withdrew themselves in a place, when he get to them, they said, فقالوا ما هذا اللباس, what is all these clothes? So that's that's the first thing that they addressed to him. It's like you're wearing things, it's like this is not a Muslim clothes. So you see the harshness that they have, it's in their mind, in their thoughts, in their heart, everything. قال فتلوت عليهم القرآن. Now these people, they have, subhanallah, as the Prophet ﷺ said, قال يتلون القرآن لا يتجاوز تراقيهم. They will, people, you really, the meaning of the hadith, قال تحقرون صلاتكم إلى صلاتهم. You belittle your prayer when you see them praying. And it's really, they amaze you the way they read the Quran. And he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they only get the deen. It's like when the shooter gets from the game that he's shooting. يمرقون من الدين كما تمرق الرمية من So they don't get anything from the deen, because when someone shoots something and it go through, it pierce it and go through, that arrow didn't get anything. So these people, they get inside the deen and get out of it without getting anything. The whole Quran that they read, it does not go beyond their throat. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, if you see them prayer, you belittle your prayer. He said, wow, look at them, how they pray, how they fast. They amaze you, and you feel like, you'll need a lot of struggle to get to their level. So the appearance is amazing, but the action and the iman does not exist. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anh, he knew that his weapon is the Quran. So when they told him, what these clothes? So he read the Quran. قال قل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده والطيبات من الرزق. Tell them, who made haram the beauty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, this adornment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave as a gift to his servant from this dunya, and the good and the pure of the rizq, of sustenance. The sustenance can be food, clothes, and everything. وقلت ولقد رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يلبس أحسن ما يكون من اليمن. And also, he said, I have seen the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم wearing the best that he can from this type of Yemeni clothes. So he gave them two dalils, two evidence. قال فقالوا لا بأس. They said okay. So he defeated them from the first point. And just when you when you read this conversation or debate, you'll see that Ibn Abbas, he started, which is very good, especially for those, mashallah, who engage sometimes in, in argument or to meet other people from other faith, to take the example of Ibn Abbas. So the first impression is to look nice. That's the first impression. Why? Because you are an ambassador of Islam. So even sometimes, people, they given flyer of Islam. People, when they see this person coming with the flyer, they run away. Why? Because the way the person is dressing, the way he's speaking, he's not like, it's like someone who have people to run away from Islam. I'm sorry, I'm saying this by experience. I saw one in the south. He was, given running right, two girls, he wanted to give them the flyer. Those screaming and running away. I said to the brother what he's doing. It was close to a masjid. He said no, he wanted to give them a flyer about Islam. I said that's not a way of invitation, The appearance, subhanallah, is important, as you see here. Right. And then the knowledge. I mean, to justify your action with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. طيب. قال فقالوا لا بأس فما جاء بك. Why are you coming to us? فقلت أتيتكم من عندي صاحبي وهو ابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وصاحبه. I came to you from, my companion, my friend, صاحبي, who is the cousin of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and his companion. And also come from him and from the companion of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, who are more knowledgeable than you in the revelation, and those, the Quran, and whom the Quran was revealed upon. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending, for example, Al-Anfal, wa Tawbah, is all this group that they were with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So just reflect on this. You are opposing them, and you are conflicting with them, and you are showing, your enmity, your animosity to them. When these people, you take in the Quran as your constitution, the Quran was revealed on them. طيب. أبلغكم عنهم وأبلغهم عنكم فما الذي نقمتم. I came here to convey to you what they want to tell you, and to convey to them what you want you to tell me, so I can take it to them. What are the things that you have into your heart against them? Let's discuss them. قال بعضهم ناهيا إياكم والكلام معه إن قريشا قوم خصمون. One of them said, be careful, do not talk to him. He's from Quraysh. And Allah said about Quraysh, إنهم قوم خصمون. People who dispute, and their purpose of argument is just to dispute. Look the ignorance, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the people of Quraysh, they are people who dispute, not seeking the truth. Just their purpose is just to argue only. When the disbeliever, they were arguing with the Prophet ﷺ about Isa alayhi salam. They told him, oh, you argue, so what's better, our gods or Isa? So the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, they given you this example to put a person in delusion, to like, a technique of dispute and argument to change the topic. Why? Because they don't want to hear the truth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, they only looking to play and to, change the words. إِنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ خَصِمُونَ. So this person, look, he took this name out of context and he wanted to throw it to Ibn Abbas because he's from Quraysh. And some of them, they said, كَلِّمُوهُ. Some of them, they said, no, talk to him. فَانْتَحَى لِي مِنْهُمْ رَجُلَانِ أَوْ ثَلَاثَةً. One or two men, they came close to him and they said, فَقَالُوا إِنْ شِئْتَ تَكَلَّمْتُ وَإِنْ شِئْتَ تَكَلَّمْنَا. He said, whatever you want. You start to talk or we talk. He said, you start. فَقَالُوا ثَلَاثٌ نَقَمْنَهُنَّ عَلَيْهِ. Three things that we have against him. جعل الحكم إلى الرجال وقال الله تعالى إن الحكم إلا لله. جعل الحكم إلى الرجال. He had people to settle into the affair of the Muslims when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said the hukum, the judgment belongs only to Allah. So they implying how Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu had Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, if my memory is good, and Amr ibn al-As to be the arbitrator and to judge into this conflict. So he said, that's wrong. That's what makes us to have niqmah, to have something in our heart, to have our grudge against Ali because he did this. He opposed Allah's saying because the hukum need to be to Allah, not to have two people to judge into this, issue. So Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu قال قد جعل الله الحكم من أمره إلى الرجال في ربع درهم في الأرنب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave the hukum, His hukum, to be handled by two people. So what He's implying here, just for your knowledge, He's implying to Surah Al-Ma'idah. Surah Al-Ma'idah, in the end of Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about those who commit the violation to hunt a game that is haram in state of ihram. I'll fix the internet first. The second one is the hukum that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had the arbitrator from each party between spouses to do the hukum. So Allah delegate certain judgment to be done by people, by believers. Just to show you the ayah, to know what Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu was referring to. Here. Look, all you who have believed, do not kill game while you are in the state of ihram. And whoever of you kills it intentionally, the penalty is an equivalent from sacrificial sacrifice animals to what he killed as judge by two just men among you. قال ما قتل يحكم به ذوي عدل. So that's the hukum that Allah gave the authority for two just men believers to do the hukum. Then they refer to this ayah, they refer to this ayah. Look how, and this is very important to understand, because when it is the difference of interpretation, and every interpretation is well founded, so it's accepted, so it's okay to be different. But here the difference is based on ignorance. So the ayah that they refer to is this one in Surah Yusuf. Here in this ayah, قال إن الحكم, the command, the judgment, only for Allah. So they took this and they applied it at any context possible. And Yusuf alayhi salam, talking about the deity that they are taking besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look the whole ayah. قال you worship not beside him except mere names you have named them, you and your father, for which Allah has sent down no authority. Legislation is not but for Allah. This is the hukum. Judgment, legislation, the command, or judgment here. The command or the judgment is for none but Allah. See, do you need any? Yeah, 12. Surah 12, ayah 40. So you see, this is how they took it out of its context and they applied it to the rest of the ayah. So Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala an answered them with this ayah. This ayah in 595. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'll show you the ayah. It's out of context. Said Ali what he had done to delegate one of, that he chose, and one to be representative of the second party, to come together and to arbitrate and issue a judgment, that apply on everyone. That's a violation of the deen, because such a thing cannot be done. It needs to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's like come a group and put the book of Allah and argue, this is what Allah said. So you cannot have two people to judge for us. So Ibn Abbas, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he delegated for something small. Will not be wise and more important to have such a judgment to save the life of Muslims? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the other ayah, so this is, take note of 595, the other ayah in Surah An-Nisa, the other ayah in Surah An-Nisa, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about the conflict between spouses, and he said, if you fear, a conflict of separation between them, then bring a hakam, arbitrator. Here, 435. If you fear a breach between them, between the men of, appoint two arbitrators, one from his family and the other from hers. If they both wish for peace, Allah will cause their reconciliation. So this is the evidence of Ibn Abbas. طيب. فالحكم في رجل وامرأته والعبد أفضل أم الحكم في الأمة? He said, what do you think now? What is more important? To have arbitration between, in a matter of violation of game, or the matter of a conflict between spouses? What is more important, to do that, or to have, the arbitration and settlement between a whole nation, قالوا نعم. They said, yeah, you're right. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. I can't verify that. Huh? Yeah, Abu Musa. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. And there's different version. Huh? The only one that really to be considered, those narrated by the trustworthy one, and Abu Bakr al-Imam Ibn al-Arabi, he had it very detailed in his book Al-Awasimu min al-Qawas. طيب, the next one. So this one is settled, they accept. You give them the evidence, it's very clear. قال وأخرى مجانفة أن يكون أمير المؤمنين فأمير الكافرين هو. The other thing, he called himself the prince of the believer. He's the prince of the disbeliever. This is what they're saying. He said, وأخرى مجانفة أن يكون أمير المؤمنين فأمير الكافرين هو. فقلت لهم, he told them, if I tell you something from the Sunnah, you will listen to me? He said, yes. قلت قد سمعتم أو أراه قد بلغكم أنه لما كان يوم الحديبية جاء سهيل بن عمرو إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. In the day of the Hudaybiyah, Suhail ibn Amr came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم to, just to have a way to have the treaty. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لعلي, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said to Ali, right, هذا ما صالح عليه محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعمر. This is what, the treaty, and they agree in the article of this treaty, Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah, and Amr. He told them, hey, stop. So this is the disbeliever. قالوا لو نعلم أنك رسول الله لم نقاتلك. If we have acknowledged that you are the messenger of Allah, we will never have fought you. So you cannot put in the treaty Rasulullah. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لعلي امحو يا علي, erase it. So he said, it's not a question of the name to say Amir al-Mu'mineen, Amir al-Kafirin. This is the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Because when they made the tahkim, they make, in the name of, the group of Ali and the group of Muawiyah, without saying Amir and Amir. He said, this Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to have this objective for this treaty to be fulfilled, he accepted for his name that been given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not be mentioned in the treaty. Because when you come to the arbitration and you say, oh, we are making this arbitration and we agreeing with Amir al-Mu'minin, said, if truly Amir al-Mu'minin, we cannot even say it because we have by obligation to obey him. So how are we conflicting with him, you know? So the thing is not settled yet. So he said, here the Prophet ﷺ, for the greater good, he erased. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that he's Rasulullah. Or the munafiqeen, they came, every time they come to see the Prophet ﷺ, they said, Ya Rasulullah, we witness that you are Rasulullah. Imagine people every time they come say, Assalamu alaikum. And they look at the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, we witness that you are Rasulullah. So it's like awkward because the only people who always say it, they were the munafiqeen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, He said, when they come to you, they said, we witness that you are Rasulullah. And Allah knows already that you are Rasulullah. But Allah witnessed that they are liars. You know? So it's not a question about the title that someone need to have. It's about, subhanAllah, Allah already knows. But when it comes to the greater good, the Prophet ﷺ removed and he asked Ali. And Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu didn't want to do it. He said no. So the Prophet ﷺ told me, where is it? He told me here. And he erased it. قال أفخرجتم من هذه؟ قالوا نعم. Said, did I settle this with you? He said yes. So the three things that they had against Ali, the one he answered, the second one he answered. Now let's see the third one. قالوا نعم. Let's hit the whole narration. The other one, he said, قاتل ولم يسبي. This is another big violation. He fought them and he didn't take the spoils, and the prisoner, he didn't take any prisoner. You remember what I have said. ولم يغنم, he didn't take the ghanim. So how can he's, you know, it's not about the money. It's not about, you know, to take people, you know, slavery or prisoners. For them, Ali, he did against, you know, he acted against the book of Allah. That's what is in their mind. Allah said the judgment is only for Allah. Look, He has people to judge. And even how they spread the news, it really, for those weak heart and ignorant, it really, they embrace it and they adhere to it. That's the problem. He didn't follow Allah saying, in al-hukmu illa lillah. Violation. He accepted to have his title, you know, in the tahkim without being mentioned Amir al-Mu'minin when he is Amir al-Mu'minin. That's the second. So it's like he removed himself from that position that the Ummah gave it to him. So Ibn Abbas answered them with the first, with the two ayah. The second one with the Hudaybiyah, the Prophet erasing his you know, sifa, attribute as being Rasulullah. The third one is in Surah Al-Anfal. So Al-Anfal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this is for Allah and His Messenger. And it goes back to the believers. So how come he did that? And he did so, he violated the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not take these people, who they call them people, I mean, they don't care, you know. They consider them kuffar. The other side of Hashem, they consider them kuffar. قال, look, and they meant معركة the battle of Al-Jamal wa Siffin. Look what he answered them. طيب, who was in معركة Al-Jamal? Sayyidah Aisha. Said, what do you think? That if you apply what you're saying, then our mother, we're going to take as a slave? And you do to her what you're going to do to someone who's like a non-believer? وَتَسْتَحِلُّونَ مِنْهَا مَا تَسْتَحِلُّونَ مِنْ غَيْرِهَا. فإن قلتم نعم فقد كفرتم بكتاب الله. If you say yes, then you become disbeliever of the book of Allah. وخرجتم من الإسلام. If you say such a thing, that yes, it's halal to do this for the mother of the believers, then you are non-believer. And then Ibn Abbas, he said, every time, radiallahu ta'ala, they bring him an issue, he'll answer it. And these, they were the main one. Ibn Abbas, when he left them, they were following him 2,000. And 6,000, they insisted on their position. So there were 8,000. After this debate, Ibn Abbas, left them with 2,000 with him. They realized what Ibn Abbas said is the truth. So the rest, they were people who are stubborn. They were people who they have their own agenda. They were people who didn't care and ignorant. Now, there is also a lesson to learn for us today. Despite the fact that these people are criminals, these people who had their sword really, out to kill the Muslim, but they accepted the argument and they listened, and among them who really, show humility, and they changed their position. So, and today, subhanallah, you'll find conflict, not, between groups who had like such differences like this Khawarij, but subhanallah, it leads to division, and it leads to what the Khilaf, the bad Khilaf leads to. The next chapter is to talk about the differences in more technical way. So here, the reason of differences. But before getting to the main differences, we want to explain first how slowly things became very normal to have differences. It is impossible to not have differences. However, the differences are in furu', never in usul. They are in the branches of the law of the Sharia. They are in the law of the Sharia, in the ahkam al-tafsili, the details, ahkam, but they are not into the usul. When we're talking about usul, we're talking about the aqidah. Because the differences of aqidah, it's being away from the deen. طيب. A brief study about the school of thought. You have this in the book, okay, for the names, so. After the epoch of the companions Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim and at-tabi'in, the kibar al-tabi'in, I say the kibar al-tabi'in, the greater of the tabi'in, the followers of the companion, and kibar al-tabi'in, those who they have been in companionship with the Sahaba companion, with the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with many number of them. Sigar al-tabi'in, those who came later and they only witnessed the presence of few companions. After, kibar al-tabi'in, there were almost, 13 school of thought. And then, from these 13, and all of them Ahl Sunnah. Ahl Sunnah, those following the true path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The majority of the Muslim and the common people, the common, Muslims, all of them follow this trans or this school of thoughts, because they all derived from the companion, derived from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, only 8 from them that has been recorded, the knowledge of these scholars. And then there's differences, and there's, people are referred in the books when they talk about certain main scholars that we know. And the main one, there were like 5. I mean, to have student and to have, who follow up, not follow up, like they spread and they taught this, their knowledge. That's how it was spread, and we have it up to this very day. I'll go like very fast, to mention the name, and you know them almost all. The first one, Imam Al-Hasan Al-Basri. Imam Al-Hasan Al-Basri. The second, Abu Hanif Al-Nu'man. The third, Al-Imam Al-Awza'i. The fourth, Sufyan ibn Sa'id ibn Masruq Al-Thawri, Sufyan Al-Thawri. The fifth, Al-Imam Al-Layth ibn Sa'd. Number 6, Al-Imam Malik ibn Anas. Then Al-Imam Sufyan ibn Uyaynah. Then Al-Imam Muhammad ibn Idris Al-Shafi'i. Then Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahumullah ta'ala. And also there is Al-Imam Ibn Hazm, Dawood ibn Ali Al-Zahiri, actually Dawood ibn Ali Al-Zahiri, this one Al-Iraqi, Al-Baghdadi. They call it the school of the Zahiri school. And Ibn Hazm has a book about the Zahiri school. All of them Ahl Sunnah. Some of the scholars, their knowledge is being, as we said, recorded. Other scholars, they didn't have, like Al-Imam Sufyan Al-Thawri, he always had, issues with the rulers. So he didn't have a place. He always was traveling. So he didn't have a student around him that they lived with him long to take his knowledge. So it depends on the circumstances, In the other hand, there is, which is helped some of these schools to be known, school of thought. It is also the government who's been ruling under the Khalifa. They chose, for example, like in the time Al-Abbasiyin, for Al-Umayyin, they took Al-Imam Malik as being in Medina. Then when the Khilafah changed to Baghdad, so most of the people over there, they are, influenced by the school of thought of Abi Hanifa. Therefore, it became the main school, is, the main, let's say, law implemented, influenced by the school of Abi Hanifa. That's why in the time of the conquest of Islam, that happened in the time of the Abbasiyin to the subcontinent, all of them, they have the Hanafi school, because at that time the school, or like the thoughts that being implemented by the government, is the Hanafi. The Andalus, the people of Andalus, they were originally from Bani Umayyah, so they took with them the fiqh of Al-Imam Malik, and that's why in North Africa till now Malikiyin. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, he has, he was in Mecca, then in Yemen, and then he traveled to Masr and in Egypt, where he died. So his knowledge stayed around him, the student in Egypt, and that's, they were, Shafi'i, and he spread around that region. and so on. The Hanbali was in Baghdad, and his school was strong, and has a lot of students, rahimahullah ta'ala. And those are the main school of thought that, being helped for their, to be spread, condition first of student of living into one place. So they have a lot of, they taught for long years in the same place, which make them to have a lot of students. And Al-Kitab al-Muwatta of Imam Malik, you find many of the narrations, say Muwatta narration of so-and-so, Muwatta of narration. And the second one is the way how the government, they embrace some of the school of thought, which is make that school of thought to be known among the people. So this is the way, like, let's say, why this main school, they spread more than the others. The manahij of al-a'immah, and this is where you're going to see how the differences starts. So what is a school of thought first? The school of thought, it's a way to implement the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That's what is the school of thought. The source is the Quran, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and then the third one is al-ijtihad. So the ijtihad is the effort, done to find solution to issue that we do not have a text, we don't have direct revelation in it. So we have to do put in implementation the mechanism of ijtihad, and the ijtihad is done based on the Quran and the Sunnah. However, the ijtihad, it has tools. The tools of the ijtihad are things like al-qiyasu, al-istishabu, al-istihsanu, al-masalih al-mursala. Those are tools. So the differences in the tools, some scholar, they adhere and embrace and use some tools, the other they don't use them. So if you have differences in the tools that you use to extract the new laws, to tackle and deal with the new issues, then you're going to have differences because you're using the new different tools. And these tools, every scholar has his justification, of course, from the core of the Sharia, that other, they don't see it fitted for also different justification. The three imams known, so the four that all of you know is Abu Hanifa, wa Malik, wa Shafi'i, wa Ahmad. The imams Malik, wa Shafi'i, wa Ahmad, they are fuqaha hadith wa athar. Mainly, they are scholar of hadith and athar, narrators of what the Salaf had. So those who, learned the knowledge of people of Medina. Abu Hanifa, on the other hand, he inherited the fiqh of Ahlul Ra'i. Ahlul Ra'i, based on the opinion, an opinion which is more ijtihad than relying on text. And of course, This is due to the circumstances, because as we're going to see that in Al-Iraq especially, they had a lot of fitan, and after the assassination of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, there were like a lot of fabrication of ahadith. So the ahadith become, not a reliable source for the ahkam. Why? Because many of them, they are fabricated. When the scholar, of Ahl al-Hadith, they have the tools and the, let's say, the art of knowing which hadith is right and which hadith is wrong. Also, before they have the hadith was known in Hijaz, which is in Arabia, and the hadith that spread in Iraq, in that area, the other part of the Muslim world. None of the group take from the other hadith, because they said, we do not trust those ahadith. Why? Because they do not know the chain of narration as they know the chain of narration that they grow up with. So, for example, people of the Hijaz, they don't take any hadith coming from the area of the Iraq. Why? Because they believe they are from the people of Medina. How they can take a hadith who came from another path which is not from the source, which is Medina. So this small thing is like more being meticulous and being very cautious in taking the source upon which you're going to rely to extract the hukm. So which is already help us to understand that in the fundamental of every school of thought, there are differences already. So if we have differences in the fundamental, then they're going to have differences into the ahkam. The tabi'een like Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, the one that is based on the knowledge of the companion, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, that's what Al-Maliki, Al-Shafi'i, and Hanbali school, they followed. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. You can refer into the book and you find all these names. And then you have the school of Ibrahim al-Nakh'i. Ibrahim al-Nakh'i. This school which rely on ijtihad and opinion in absence of athar, in absence of a text of revelation. They say text of revelation, Quran or Sunnah. So already you have from the beginning difference. A group who rely on the narration that they received from the chain of the Salaf, and group who rely on both the narration but also on the opinion, which is the ijtihad, if there is no athar. So the athar, which is the text, which is mean what they know, not what the other they have. Understand? Because when the hadith has been spread, it didn't go the hadith, all of them, in a very, let's say, in every region received all the hadith. No. So every region received the hadith that depends on the companion that they get to that region. Because every companion, he had some of the hadith, not all of the hadith. Now, we have this big difference of khilaf when the headquarter of the khilafah of Bani Abbas, turned to be into Baghdad, they took some of the great scholars over there from Al-Hijaz to spread the knowledge that they have in Hijaz and they do not have in Iraq. This scholar, like Rabi'a ibn Abi Abd al-Rahman, wa Yahya ibn Sa'id, wa Hisham ibn Urwa, wa Muhammad ibn Ishaq, they were one of the greatest, scholar and big huffaz. So this, we're talking about the teacher and the shuyukh of, Al-Bukhari and so on. As also some of the people of Iraq, scholars, students, they travel to Medina to learn from the scholar of Medina, like the student of Abu Hanifa, like Abu Yusuf and Muhammad ibn al-Hasan. They took from Malik alayhi salam, radiyallahu ta'ala an, wa rahimahullah ta'ala. So you have like kind of, there is, subhanAllah, this dynamic action of transferring knowledge who enhanced really that way of thinking and reduced the differences. However, still Imam Abu Hanifa, he has a kind of slightly different approach in building his mechanism of extracting the new laws or of setting the jurisprudence. What are the principles of Abi Hanifa? We can refer to his saying, rahimahullah ta'ala, in which he say all what he rely on to, to have his fiqh. قال إني آخذ بكتاب الله تبارك وتعالى. The first thing, I take from the book of Allah. إذا وجدته, if there's what I'm looking for in the book of Allah. فما لم أجده فيه أخذت بسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. If I don't find in the book of Allah, I will turn to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught to Mu'adh. So this is the way of every scholar. قال فيه أخذت بسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والآثار الصحاح عنه التي فشت في أيدي الثقات. And to take from those trustworthy one, what they have from knowledge and, spread among the trustworthy scholars or people. طيب. فإذا لم أجد في كتاب الله وسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أخذت بقول أصحابه. If I don't find in the book of Allah nor in the sunnah of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, I will then take the statement of his companion. And I take the statement or the saying from among them whom I choose, because it depends on his analysis. And I don't go farther than that. I don't go farther than that. So when it comes to the scholar like Ibrahim wa Sha'bi wa Ibn al-Musayyib, and he mentioned too many other scholars, he said, then there are people, scholars, and I am scholar. They do their ijtihad, I do my ijtihad too. That's the famous statement of Abi Hanifa, هم رجال ونحن رجال. They are men and we are two men. So why should I listen to them and follow what they do? They are in the level of scholars, scholarly level. We have the same thing. So they make ijtihad, we'll make ijtihad. But when you talk to me about the Prophet, that's what my reference. When you talk to me about the companion, that's my reference. But you tell me so-and-so, scholar so-and-so, and scholar so-and-so, I said, you stop there. They had make ijtihad, I make my ijtihad too. So this is the caliber of, level of people who are able to do the ijtihad. Because the statement being forcefully used, many people, he just studied a few books, he didn't even finish them. And when people, they talk to him, said, don't talk to me, they are hum rijalun wa nahnu rijal. Said those people are, rijal, which is like they came to a level of being like people of knowledge, and we have knowledge too. This is what it means. So many people, they use that without knowing what they're saying. So these are the main principle of the school of thought of Abi Hanifa. There's other thing, we don't want to get into details, but it's, I mean, if it's required to mention them, I will mention them, inshallah. Example, maybe we can the الدلالة الدلالة is the indication that the statement is given to the reader. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say أقيموا الصلاة, establish prayer. So the dalil here, this is the ayah tell me establish the prayer, you have to pray. Okay. So there's no interpretation in it, because the statement, the command is very clear. So in this case we say, أقيموا الصلاة is an order, and order imply obligation. So here the obligation implied in this order is qat'iyya, is definitive. It's not dhanniya, it's not presumptive. It's not a presumption. I presume that it is obligatory. Now, when you go in more details, there is a command which, for example, tell you to do something, and another command to tell you not do part of the thing that you've been commanded to do. So this is what we call the al-am, the general. The other one is the specified part. So when I look, I said, okay, if this I presume to not do it, and I have to do this, or I presume to do this, and I have to not do this. So here, which is mean, which part from these two parts, which is we have the general and we have size inside it, which one which is the qat'i and which one which is the presumptive. For the school of the Hanafi school, they said both are qat'i, both are definitive, because he said that's a part from the whole, so both they have the same thing. For other scholars, they say no, the big part was like, let's say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do not eat anything that the name of Allah is not mentioned. So this is qat'i. Then there's the exception, which is from all of this. He said the food of the people of the book. So is this qat'i or dhanni? Dhanni, which is mean, should, when it conflict with other dalil, which one are going to outweigh? So this type of issue, so the usul fiqh and the scholar, they really went so deep. It's vast and huge and deep knowledge, alhamdulillah, to help the Muslim, find their way at any time. That the Muslim, they forget their deen. That's the problem.
Other than Allah, versus Allah's name has not been taken. Like I have not said Allah, or I have said the name of some other God. So I used to see that translation. Now I'm seeing a couple of translations just saying Allah's name has not been taken.
In the way of the eating.
Slaughtering, yes, eating. So Allah's name has not been taken. Another translation is other than Allah's name, meaning name of some other ilah. So if that is the case, like a Hindu, you cannot say Bismillah and eat that. But if a Christian cuts and he doesn't say Allah's name, you say Bismillah and you can eat.
ولا تأكلوا مما لم يذكر اسم الله عليه. Do not eat from which the name of Allah was not mentioned on it. That's the real translation. That the translation they do by meaning based on the books of tafsir. And this one will englobe both sides. So if someone name other than Allah, so the name of Allah is not mentioned. And if someone does not name Allah, also the name of Allah is not mentioned, that it's not halal. Then that's when comes the details. So that's why it comes, this exception is taken from the general law. There is an exception for particular people because of certain, consideration that Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah. However, should we say the other exception, it was given just on the time of the Prophet because we have this main law in Surah Al-An'am that's definitive, so we cannot play with it. So whatever exception, you're going to take it as, presumption, and we have a definitive. So the definitive will come over the presumptive, and we only apply the definitive one. So that's where you're gonna find a lot of differences, but differences that do not change the deen. That's the most important. Just to mention some of the principle of the fuqaha. The other thing that the madhab of Hanafi school that they have, قال ومذهب الصحابي على خلاف العموم مخصص له. He means here they also consider the action of the companion is an exception to the general law, and this is also based on it different ahkam, different laws. Other thing that they do not consider, and there is a lot of dalalat that inshallah if we'll make another class of usul fiqh we'll study that. But let's take the most important thing as to keep our focus on the main topic, which is the differences. Al-Imam Malik, Manhaj al-Imam Malik, which also the Hadith al-Ahad Al-Hadith al-Ahad also it has the differences between the school of thought. Hadith al-Ahad is the hadith that is not mutawatir. Al-Mutawatiru is the hadith that has a same level in its origin from the Prophet as the Quran. Tawatir. Qat'i al-thubut. So the origin of the hadith is certain as the Quran, that we call tawatir. All the ahadith that didn't reach this level, they call it ahad. Ahad. However, hadith al-ahad, what type of knowledge that is providing, conveying, is a knowledge that is certain or a knowledge that is presumptive knowledge. Presume is like presumption is ghalabatul dhann. The ghalabatul dhann say, I believe 70–80% of the news is right. Certain, I believe 100% is right. So some of the scholars, like the Hanafi school of thought, they take the ahad as, from the side of presumptive. It's like a presumption, which is means 75 to 90%. So if I will find an ayah from the Quran or hadith mutawatir, for me it's certain for this school of thought. So I will neglect this hadith because it's ahad. For example, in the school of thought of Hanbali school, he's a great, scholar, one of the great scholars of hadith, rahimahullah. So the hadith ahad, he has the evidence to justify that it gives you certain knowledge, as long as the hadith is sahih. Why do you, obligate many of the narration to be at the level of the tawatir, which is like, it's a tawatir. What is the meaning of the tawatir? Again, to remind you, is that is narrated by a number that it will never, or it will be impossible for them to fabricate a lie. That's the tawatir. Al-ahad didn't get to that level. However, if it didn't get to that level, you should not negate that the knowledge that provided by the ahad is not certain, because then you're going to have kind of obstacle in conveying the message. The Prophet ﷺ, one of their justifications, that the Prophet ﷺ sent messenger one or two to other nation to give them the letter of Islam. So if it was not reliable for one person to take a knowledge that is certain and to convey it as is, then we say the Prophet ﷺ should have send an army to take that message to show them that this knowledge that we bring you is certain. But when it comes to tarjih, when I have a hadith, it has certain element concerning Allah, and another hadith, he said, no, this one is ahad, I will not take it in consideration in this case. I said, no, I'll take it in consideration, and it might be this one had that authenticity that I need. And this from where comes the differences. This is an example. So Al-Imam Malik, he has slightly different way. So Al-Imam Malik is from Madrasatul Hijaziyin. Hijaziyin is like Ahlul Hijaz, Arabia, which is mean the madrasa of Al-Imam Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. So Madrasat al-Athar, al-Hadith wal-Athar, is narration of the Salaf. So the first thing is, of course, the Book of Allah. Then ثم بظاهره وهو العموم. Then to take the ظاهر القرآن. ظاهر القرآن, what the Quran take in is generality. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do this. So in general, that's the highest. Anything that comes under that, it's not taken in consideration unless there is a specific hadith of the Prophet ﷺ to tell otherwise. Then they take ظاهر, the first, ظاهر al-Quran, which is the general law in the Quran. Then if it's not clear, they take to dalil of the Quran, the interpretation, to say what the meaning here. Then the al-mafhum, in deeper meaning. So for example, there is a dalil al-Quran. He said the Quran here, the ayah implies that you should not do this. So the Quran does not tell you do not do it. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about an action. He said, those are the fasiqun will be punished in hellfire. He didn't, Allah tell you do not do it, but I understand that this action is going to lead to punishment, then it's haram. So this is dalil I have. The other, they have, there is an ayah that they want to understand its meaning, because the ayah is not telling us that you have to do or not to do. So this is how they break it down, the Maliki school. I'll give you an example. The recitation of the Fatiha behind the Imam in the congregation prayer, like in the Shafi'i and the Hanbali school, they have the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that he said someone to who's reading behind me the Quran, do not do that. And then he said, unless if it's al-Fatiha, which is actually another hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not do that. So some of the interpretation saying, they take the hadith which is permissible to read the Fatiha, make the reading of the Fatiha obligation on the ma'mum. However, they say the other hadith, he said you should not. Now the Maliki school, they take the Quran the highest, right? They said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا. When the Quran is read, listen to it attentively and give your ear to it. واضح. So based on this, he said you should not read the Fatiha. You have to listen to the Fatiha of the Imam. They told him there is a hadith. He said, I'm telling you Quran. This is the umum. This is the highest. This is when you have a hadith and Quran am. So the general is going to be advanced on the hadith. The other who said the Quran is from Allah and the hadith is from Allah, and the Prophet ﷺ had said that is permissible, then we apply this one. However, it's not an obligation, because someone who does not read it, none of the school of thought, they say it's your salat is batila. I mean, there's some thoughts, but that's it has its argument and it is disputed. So this, in bringing the ayah and the hadith together, and you'll come up with through the interpretation a specific law. So for example, today we have it, people after the Qul Ameen, the Imam start the Salat, and you'll feel people like they would be reading behind you. So, and we said, look, let's have a deal. Okay, you grew up reciting the Fatiha. We're not gonna tell you change your opinion and follow the opinion of another school. You grew up like that. And what you have grew up on is justified, because we have a scholar, they justify it, and they had it to be part of their, teaching of the Salah. However, you cannot blame or say to the people who do not read the Fatiha is wrong, because they have an evidence from the Quran. You choose to read the Fatiha, and the other one choose to not read the Fatiha. Why? Because he's concentrating with the Imam. And this is only in Salat al-Jahriyah, in the loud recitation. In the silent recitation, everyone has to read the Fatiha. So how can we, find a solution for everyone? The solution is simple. What the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith has, warned those who recite behind him. قَالَ مَنْ يُنَازِعُنِي فِي الْقُرْآنِ, who's like fighting with me. Which is mean like, the person who recite next to you the Fatiha is going to take away your khushu'. Right? Cannot concentrate. So I said, read your Fatiha without disturbing your neighbor. Because some of the people, they want to read the Fatiha, it's like they are the only people in the masjid. So the Imam cannot concentrate, the whole saf is not concentrating till the brother finished his Fatiha. So those etiquette, subhanallah, is not your brother or your sister is praying next to you, yes. For example, they don't read the Fatiha, it's okay. Of course it's okay, because it's justified. They read the Fatiha, it's okay, alhamdulillah. Now we are together. What is my right toward you and your right toward me? To help me concentrate in the prayer. Then your reading of the Fatiha is not about the reading of the Fatiha, it's about how you read it. Is taking away my concentration. So read your Fatiha in a silent way, that you not disturb the concentration of others. That's it. So we have difference of opinion. This difference of opinion being kept because it's justified and both are following the way of the Sunnah. But let's respect, each other by helping each other to preserve our concentration. Alhamdulillah. So we have to do it again when we have new people coming to the masjid. Maybe you need to add it to the rules. The etiquette in the salah, subhanallah, is what helps someone to concentrate. The next one, قال, then Al-Maliki school, they get to the next level, which is wherever in the Quran or whenever in the Quran there is, kind of ishara, pointing to the reason for which the law was legislated. So they take that reason to apply it on other ahkam in the future. So here, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this is haram for you, the food, the dead animal, the blood, and so on, so on, so on, so. He said, فَإِنَّهُ رِجْسٌ. This is impure. So anything that is impure might have the same ruling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make prohibited here. This is in the Quran 5, and he applied the same 5 principles on the Sunnah. Then he has al-ijma', consensus. Now in the al-ijma', you have a lot of difference of opinions. Because there is types of ijma'. There's what we call al-ijma' al-sukuti. Al-ijma' al-sukuti is the ijma' that been, proven by the silence, if he said, of the scholars. how this has happened. So there's what we call al-ijma' al-sukuti wal-ijma' al-sarih. Al-sarih is the one that's been expressed. So we said this is ijma' between the companion. And the ijma' required to have dalil. So I cannot this consensus between the scholars. I said, give me your evidence that is consensus, that there is general agreement between the companions. So he said, for example, وَحَدَّثَ بِالْإِجْمَاعِ, the one who quoted this ijma' is so-and-so scholar in his book this. So yes, we can take it as ijma'. So we can take it as a source, as an evidence to rely on into our ahkam, in building into the structure of our jurisprudence or law, Islamic laws. Al-ijma' al-sukuti, some of the scholars, they do not accept it. Because al-ijma' al-sarih is really difficult to have it, as to justify it unless it's been narrated or proven. Al-ijma' al-sukuti is the silent consensus. What does it mean, silent consensus? It's that someone, for example, he will say, or like how can we put it, someone say there's a consensus, right? Say, how can you prove this consensus? You live, for example, here in this community, and you say ijma'. To have the ijma', you have to have the scholar in all the states, and then you have to have the agreement of what you're saying from the different countries, Muslim countries, and among all the scholars, and so on. So it's going to be very difficult to have ijma'. So to have this ijma', you have to have the same opinion that you have here, that you have, for example, overseas. Every place, all over overseas, you have the scholar, they said, they look at your opinion and said, yes, I agree. Okay, so and so in this, the scholars of, for example, of Bangladesh, they agreed on it. The scholar of, people in Africa, they agreed. And the collector said, MashaAllah, so we have an ijma'. And then he said, ijma', what about the new scholar who gonna come? What about the scholar who died and they were not asked for ijma'? So it's gonna be really difficult to have. So what they say, he said that the Prophet ﷺ said that the believer, if he sees an evil thing or wrong thing, he will not let it go. He will speak out. Right? And then they said, those who implement this are the scholar of this ummah. So if someone come up with an opinion, and all the scholars around, nobody spoke, nobody opposed to that opinion, which is mean they get agreed on this opinion without expressing, because they think it's fine. Why? Because it is from the nature of the Muslims to see something wrong to stop it. But among the scholars, no one stopped it. Therefore, we have an ijma' here. They said, then we have a consensus. I said, what is your proof of the consensus? He said, because nobody stopped this opinion. Because if it's wrong, so the people that come said, I oppose this opinion because it's against the Sharia of Allah. However, the other scholar, they tell you, okay, we have listened to you, but how about you live in a tyrant country where you cannot even speak? So how can you call it consensus? Maybe the scholar who didn't oppose to the opinion to that main scholar because he was scared. And that's how we have a conflict on one of the source of the Sharia, which is al-ijma'. Wadah. However, that's why I said there's a lot of details. But for us to understand that the necessity to have khilaf, it is a necessity, because we said that's part of enhancing of the rahmah, to have the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala embracing everyone, to have people help them to better implement their deen, to help other people who will not be able to implement this. You'll find them different option and so on, and all of them, of course, with the objective to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, after that, we have Al-Qiyas وعمل أهل المدينة والاستحسان. Al-Qiyas, in very simple, inshallah, definition. Al-Qiyas is the analogy, to measure. Al-Qiyas example, the Prophet ﷺ said, any intoxicant is haram. So anything that intoxicates is haram. Alcohol is haram, wine is haram, is prohibited. If you bring some drinks with blue color and different smell, you're going to say, what this drink? I said, he said, does intoxicate? He said, yes. He said, then it's haram. I said, how is haram? It's different. It's not red. I said, hold on. The Prophet ﷺ told us, because the reason that thing was made haram, because it's intoxication. So any product you bring, it's either liquid or non-liquid, or like any type, look like a pill, look like a grass, look at things, intoxicant, has the thing, then it's haram. So I said, how did you do that? I said, we did it by qiyas. He said, the alcohol, Allah made it haram because it's intoxicant. Therefore, anything intoxicant is haram. So that's the qiyas. So this is one of the tools, used by the Maliki school, which is a tool not used by other scholars like the Ibn Hazm and so on. And then we have Al-Ijma' is the whole scholar they agreed upon as a principle in the Ijma', not as the type of the Ijma'. Then you have the Qiyas, some of the scholars they do not accept it. The Al-Istihsan, Shafi'i, he does not accept it. Actually, in the book of his Risala that he opposed to it, and he showed why his opposition. Al-Maslaha al-Mursala, which is to take, reference to the ahadith that are not, connected to the Prophet ﷺ. Al-Imam Malik, he take them as an evidence. Al-Imam Shafi'i does not take them as an evidence. Why? Because Al-Imam Malik, he rely to the ahadith al-mursala of Al-Imam Hassan al-Basri. He said, Al-Imam Hassan al-Basri, for me, is thiqa, I take. Al-Imam Shafi'i only take what is connected to the Prophet ﷺ. He will not stop as one of the big tabi'in, and he said, we rely on his trustworthiness. He said, no, I want the whole, chain connected, except for one that we're going to mention. One of the specifications that Al-Imam Malik has in his usul is Amal Ahlul Medina. Amal Ahlul Medina, which is the action of people of Medina. So, for example, if you bring hadith that conflict how the people of Medina they act, then Al-Imam Malik, he will prefer to advance the action of people of Medina. Because the action of people of Medina considered from Imam Malik are, they grow into the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So they get the habit to really do the thing that the Prophet ﷺ used to do. So if you bring hadith from Al-Hijaz, for example, from Al-Iraq, and you tell me you have to follow this Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, I'm going to tell you the Sunnah was raised here, and you bring me a hadith from different, narrated from different place. So for Imam Malik, Amal Ahlu al-Madina, cannot oppose some of the hadith. الإمام الشافعي, his famous saying, يقول: الأصل قرآن وسنة فإن لم يكن فقياس عليهما. الأصل, the source, is the Quran and the Sunnah, and if there is not in the Quran and the Sunnah, then to have the qiyas, the analogy based on the Quran and the Sunnah. وإذا اتصل الحديث عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وصح الإسناد به فهو المنتهى. If we have a hadith that's authentic and we have the proof that is fully connected to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, for us that's the end. We don't look farther. والإجماع أكبر من الخبر المفرد. And they, according to the Shafi'i, the consensus is a stronger proof than a hadith that comes from one narration, one chain of narration. والحديث على ظاهره وإذا احتمل المعاني فما أشبه منها ظاهره أولاها به. And we take the hadith as is. But if we have different interpretation, or like the wording of the hadith might lead to understand it from different perspective, different interpretation, then we take the interpretation the closest to how it appears, the closest to its wording, to dhahar, its appearance. وإذا تكافأت الأحاديث فأصحها إسنادا أولاها. If we have many ahadith talking about the same subject, then we'll advance the hadith with the strongest chain of narration. And for us, we do not take in consideration al-hadith al-munqata, al-hadith that stops at the level of not companion, stop at the level of tabi'i, except those narrated by Ibn al-Musayyib. Why? Because he learned from Ibn al-Musayyib, so he knows his narrations. And we cannot make qiyas, analogy, on principles, and we cannot say for a principle why and how, but we can say for the branches why and how. So if you have a principle that you rely on at your fiqh, you cannot put it in question why we have this principle. You say that is your principle, that is your pillar, that you base on it the ahkam. But when you extract from this principle laws, you can say the laws why and how, so I can give you the evidence, because the principle is the evidence. So if you come to question me on the principle, you're questioning the deen, you're not questioning the law. So this is mainly what Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, and the Imam al-Shafi'i, as we said, ankara, he refuted al-istihsan. Al-istihsan is existence of a hadith. I'll give you an example from the istihsan. And however, the Shafi'i, he opposed the istihsan in a way how it was worded, the wording of the istihsan, but he will give, and he gave the fatwa for similar matters with the same that being given through the istihsan. For example, I'll give an example. In the Sharia, to have a contract, of sale, a contract of sale. If you're going to buy this, you pay the money and you get your merchandise. So you cannot give the money and not get the merchandise, because the merchandise, it might not be being given. So it's going to be kind of injustice into the action, because the action was not fulfilled, unless in the contract they say to be delivered in certain time, so they guarantee the delivery, and if not, he will get back his money. But to have a full contract that has all the element of justice and fairness to be given and take. I give you the money, you give me my merchandise. And the merchandise, I need to see it. So seeing the merchandise, okay, so this is cost, $10, I'll give you $10 for this. But you give me a description of a merchandise, I'll give you the money, and then you bring me something else, that is cheating. So to avoid all of that. However, people want to make, pass a command of something that take time to be fixed. So the person, for example, a carpenter, he said, I need a deposit to buy the material so I can start the product that you ordered. So here we have an issue, because how can I give you money without getting anything? So kind of a conflict with the hadith. So he's saying, despite the existence of the hadith, but this is because the transaction, there is a trust in it. And if we would not help this transaction to be flexible, then we will not be able to help the economy to grow and people to take their needs. So we make istihsan, that kind of preferring to do such a thing for the common good, for this particular good that is going to be spread for both the seller and the buyer. The buyer, he's going to have his table, for example, the way he wants, and the other one also, he's not going to pay from his money. He's going to use the money of the buyer, because he's not going to have the table ready unless that person orders it. So he cannot come to the, for example, to a shop. He said, I like a table like this, but I want it this way, and I want it this way, and I told the elevation. He said, okay, that's fine. We don't have such a thing in the inventory, but we can make it for you. Okay, you can make it. You have to pay deposit 30%. That deposit is the question mark here. So I said, if you agree on the terms, then comes from usul fiqh al-istihsan. He said, al-istihsan is like you say, I like this. This is good. This is fair. It helps both of them. So that's mean istihsan. Istihsan to even despite the existence of a hadith. So I'm not excluding the hadith, but I'm trying to help for these circumstances to help these two people fulfill their transaction, knowing that by fulfilling it, they're not going to fall into what the Prophet ﷺ prohibited, and what the Prophet ﷺ, by making this way of transaction, to avoid that cheating and to avoid for people to be, mistreated in their transaction. So this is the istihsan. Al-Masalih al-Mursala, which also the Shafi'i does not agree, I believe, yes. Al-Masalih al-Mursala is one of the principles in the Maliki school. We finish with this and we'll give you the break, inshallah. So what is al-Maslaha al-Mursala? Al-Maslaha al-Mursala, when you have a matter, you don't have any text. So you look at the higher objective. By looking at the higher objective, you legislate a law to help fulfill that higher objective. So when we say maslaha, we have a benefit that it does not have, a text to, let's say, to be founded on. So how we're going to take? We said we have higher objective to be organized, right? So because of that higher objective, we make the law for everyone in his office to be organized. We don't have a text to say you have to be organized. So for example, for the Maslaha al-Mursala, that Umar radiallahu ta'ala anh, that what the Imam said, that he introduced, for example, to have those files, to have this, book of registration for the name of soldiers, when they're going to go. So it's like building an administration. So this is, you don't have a text to say build an administration for the army, build an administration for the zakat. So I said, because, we are required to be organized, to be just with the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, when you have a loan between you, just to write it down. Write it down is not an obligation, but to preserve my rights. So as we want to preserve right, we want also to be organized. We want to be preserving the right of the people by being, for example, having the record and having the administration and so on, and to build this system. So this is, we cannot say this is, give me the dalil. Say the dalil is maslaha mursala. This is, it benefit as, a whole community. And this is, you'll find it into high objective of Islam. This is one of the meaning of al-maslaha al-mursala. So the problem here, a Shafi'i, he will not accept it as source of Sharia. To be like, to justify with it a source of Sharia. However, a Shafi'i will not oppose for what Umar did, but when you come tell me, for example, you say, one of the benefit of the Ummah, to live in coherence with the system. So why should keep the riba to be haram? So for maslaha mursala to be integrated into the system, we can use it as halal. So type of this thing that went in the mind of Shafi'i to not have it as evidence for the, or proof for the law of the Sharia. So because people they have with the crooked mind, they can change the whole Sharia by telling you, oh, this is our higher objective. So the good actually between the scholars, you have a scholar who open for you horizon, and another scholar come close those horizon. Why? To keep you in that moderate way. Al-Imam Malik opened it because we need it. Al-Imam Shafi'i come to close it so we will not be excessive. Al-Imam Ahmad came to base on his fiqh, on we said, on the authentic hadith. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, he made it doing on the interpretation of the opinion. If we do not refer to the hadith, then we're going to have a new Sharia. And if we do not rely on the opinion, then we're not going to have any Sharia. You see the balance? We need the opinion to continue our Sharia. And they need the hadith to not change our Sharia. And this is the beauty of the differences, as we're going to continue, inshallah, after the break. And today we have different hours, so you take the break now, huh? That's right, isn't it? They fix it. We'll meet at 7:50. Is good. You'll take your time and take your break, and we'll meet back at 7:50. Jazakumullah.